Questions to staff? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Speaker. To the Chief Building Official, could you tell me what is currently permitted on the site at 1073 Millwood, which is the site of the Leaside Memorial Gardens?
Councillor, through the chair, the staff is just putting a diagram on the machine to illustrate what's permitted on the site. Basically, one ground sign that's meant for first-party purposes is permitted on the site, and that's shown on the left-hand side of the screen. They currently have a sign of a similar type, a first-party sign that was approved by variance that is larger than what's permitted. And they are proposing the largest sign to the right, which is an electronic static sign, which is not permitted in the district. If it was permitted under the bylaw, the size of the permitted size under the bylaw is illustrated below.
Okay, could I have up on the screen the digital version of the presentation that was made to committee? So does this summarize your reasons for refusal? I wonder if you could just walk through your reasons for refusal.
Yes, Councillor, through the chair. The fundamental reason why we recommended refusal is this is a type of sign that's not permitted in open space districts, which is what this property is designated in the bylaw. And that is based on decisions made by council when electronic signs were considered a year ago. The sign itself would be 10 times more permitted, larger than the permitted size for a first-party sign, as I illustrated in the previous diagram, and 7 times higher.
And
it would also
distances?
face a number of sensitive residential properties, about 55 meters from residential sign district and 70 meters away. So there's 2 different properties that would be affected, and there's a provision in the bylaw that suggests you should be more than 250 meters away.
Right. So the separation is, it's 10 times bigger, 7 times higher. It is a third of the distance away it's supposed to be, and it's just simply not allowed for, in this district, digital signs. Is that a good way to characterize it?
Yes, Councillor, sorry, that summarizes it.
Okay. If I could ask, if there's anyone here who could speak to the lobbyist provisions or, the city manager's office. We currently have a number of policies that govern how contractors or businesses relate to the city under a variety of policies. Would you agree that in general the principle is that a company that is engaged in some kind of approval process should not be engaged in any way in offering, soliciting any kind of community benefits while they are seeking permissions from the city? Would you say that was generally reflected in our policies?
Through the chair, I did speak to the lobbyist registrar about this issue yesterday, and I think there are a number of questions related to whether or not the revenue being generated from the sign would be considered a community benefit. The lobbyist registrar did look at the registration system, and the sign company is completely up to date with their registrations. One of the principles of the lobbying bylaw, as you know, Councillor, is to be transparent in who they're lobbying and for what purpose. And they were essentially up to date to the minute.
Okay. To our city staff, sign staff, I understand at committee that there was some discussion about what the community benefits were that would accrue, or the value of this sign compared to the value of the current sign in terms of revenue. Were you aware of those numbers?
Councillor, through the chair, there were a number of submissions before the committee around increased revenue associated with this sign that would go to the facility, and not all of them were consistent, but I believe it was stated that the current rent is $9,500, and the proposed revenue to the organization would be in the vicinity of $60,000.
Okay, and I guess I'm finished.
Councillor Burnside, questions?
Yes, thank you. Through you to staff. I think it was mentioned, we're talking about the sign at 1073 Millwood Road about some regulations regarding proximity to residential neighborhoods. In terms of this proposed electronic sign, will there be any advertisement facing the neighborhood?
Councillor, through the chair, the portion of the sign facing the residential area would be a sign related to the Memorial Gardens facility and would contain electronic component, which would provide information on activities in the center.
So the answer is no to whether there be any third-party advertising facing residential, the residential neighborhood.
That's correct. The messaging is not meant to be advertising.
So then my understanding would be the messaging would be to the south, which is the rail line, and behind that's a hydro field.
Yes, through the chair, the advertising would be facing south towards Millwood, traffic coming north.
Okay, thank you. In terms of, I know you're not, are you aware that currently there is a billboard on that site? Facing, advertising facing the residential community and the rail line, so in both directions?
Yes, Councillor, through the chair, there's a current typical billboard located on that property which has third-party advertising on both sides.
Okay, thank you.
With static copy.
And are you aware that the Leaside Arena Board or the facility does collect an amount of money in the approximately $9,500 for rental of that space? That is the location itself?
Through the chair, as I noted earlier, it's been noted that they collect approximately $9,500 today.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you to our, I guess, our finance department. Are you aware that there's an $8 million loan outstanding from, I guess, really essentially between the Arena Board, Leaside Community Gardens, and the city for the building of a new ice pad?
Through you, Madam Speaker, they have a $7 million loan with the city and a $1 million loan with IO, $8 million in total.
Okay, thank you. Have they missed any payments?
No, they are up to date, but as we pointed out in our April report on city loans to third parties, they are non-compliant on one term of the agreement, which means they can't have an operating deficit, and they did run an operating deficit. So we are working with them.
Right, and I know there's some weird provisions in that loan. So if I asked you, or if there were a motion asking for a forgiving of that $7 million loan, would you be open to that idea?
I would say that is still way too premature to do.
Okay, thank you. Madam Speaker, through you to our partnership office, I know there's been a lot of, well, I won't call it mud being slung, but I will say there's been a lot of questions regarding the whole donations policy, and maybe you could, through you to the partnership office, do you see, knowing what you know about this situation, the $9,500 that's currently being paid to the Arena Board for the current billboard, and knowing what you know of the situation, do you see this as a donation?
Through the speaker, I don't see this as a donation. It is as far as I can tell on the information I have, there is a business transaction between the Arena Board and the sign company, and the change that the Arena Board or the sign company has requested changes the rental arrangement. So that's not a donation.
Okay, thank you. That's it, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perks, question?
Thank you very much to staff, and I'm not sure who. Can you point to me, I'm holding it in my hands, the donations to the City of Toronto for Community Benefits Policy. Can you point to me where a donation is defined?
Through the chair, in the policy, there is an oversight in that there's not a definition. It is in the sponsorship policy where the donation is
Right, but we don't
is
have the
defined, but it's not.
sponsorship. We don't have the sponsorship, the sponsorship policy is not what it issued here.
No, I
I'm
agree.
asking, where in the donations policy does it define?
It's not clearly defined. It makes certain
Okay.
assumptions about what's known.
It does, however, say in the donations policy, section 1.2.1, that applicants seeking an approval, permit, or license shall not concurrently offer or make voluntary donations to the city or an agency. That's correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And further, voluntary donations for community benefits shall not be solicited or accepted for any purpose or community beneficiary from applicants with concurrent application for approval, permit, or license. That's also in the policy?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much. To the staff from Toronto Buildings, during the deputations on this item, did the applicant make it clear that they would be providing extra revenue, community hours, and so on to the arena as part of this arrangement?
Councillor, through the chair, there was a description by the chair of the board during the deputations around the benefits to the arena, which included the increase in the revenue, and there was some discussion around the impact on the hockey community at the arena.
Okay. Did the chair of the board, did the applicant discuss the market value of the sign and the revenue that he would be able to generate during his presentation to the committee?
Yes, through the chair, there was discussion about the impact on the revenues as a result of the...
No. His own personal, like the value, the market value to him of being able to have that amount of sign face for that number of hours. That was discussed? The applicant's own revenue? Yes.
Yes, Councillor.
And did the applicant say that he would be taking less than his normal revenue for this sign in order to increase the amount of rent that he paid to the arena?
Yes, Councillor. There was fairly detailed information around their financial information, and they did discuss how the contribution to the arena would affect their overall revenue.
Thank you. I'm now going to ask either the city manager's office or whoever is the correct person, given that the applicant stated to the committee that the rent paid to the arena would be larger than what he would normally get on a pay on a site like this as a benefit to that arena, does that raise a question in your mind about whether or not there is a benefit to the community or whether this is simply a straight financial transaction? Does it raise a question, given what was said at committee?
Through the chair, having listened to what was said, I mean, the benefit to the arena is through the business transaction of the rent. I mean, through a donation, it would have to be a clear and unattached gift. But this is the arena clearly is interested in this larger sign because of the financial benefits it gets
I understand
through its rent.
I understand there's a benefit. The question I'm asking is more precise than that.
Okay.
Given that the applicant said that he would be receiving less rent than he typically would for a sign on of this size because he believed in the arena and wanted to help them, does that raise a question in your mind about whether or not there's a donation or benefit involved here?
In my mind, no, it does not.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
I have a motion. I'd like to request it go on the screen. The motion asks to refer the Planning and Growth Management Recommendation 1, which has to do with 703 Millwood, which is the site of the Leaside Arena, refer it back to the chief building official, and to have it resubmitted